Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Angela and I find my paradise through reading. Um, so today I am sharing my October wrap up. These are the books that I read during the month of October. Now, last month or in the beginning of the month, I was trying to figure out what to read for the month of October. I wanted it to be some spooky kind of reads. I'm not that big into horror as I used to be when I was like in middle school and high school. I used to like to read horror, but as I became an adult and developed a bunch of anxiety, I guess, I felt like I couldn't, I just kind of moved away from that genre. But I figured it's October, it's spooky season. I picked some books that I thought would be not too scary, but could be a little spooky, a little bit of a thriller kind of vibe. So I picked my books and I am going to share what I read. Now, I am so surprised that I actually read all of the books that I had selected to read during the month of October. So I am just so pleased because I really didn't think I was going to read them all. I honestly thought like two or three books maybe, because I just felt like I was super busy. I had some projects going on. Halloween. We had a Halloween party. Just all these festivities, and I was just like, it's going to be a really like low reading month. But there were a couple days that I had just huge amounts of time unexpectedly that I was able to fit a lot of reading into. And surprisingly, and I was just so surprised by this, some of these books were such page turners that I just like pounded them out in like 2 days because they were just so good. So I just had such fun reading these books this month. I was really surprised, and I look forward to like getting more into maybe murder mysteries or thriller, maybe a little bit of paranormal, let's see what happens, because I'm surprised at how much fun I had reading these books this month. So here we go. And I'm going to share them in the order that I read them. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so the first one that I read was Thistlefoot by Jenna Rose Nethercott. Okay, this is about this man and woman. They are siblings and they're kind of like estranged, and they receive a letter from a lawyer's office saying that their great grandmother had left them something in her will, that they would receive, that they were to receive 70 years after her death. So they kind of come together to receive this thing, whatever it was that was in her will, and it was Thistlefoot, this house that walks around on chicken legs. And so each of these siblings, they have like these abilities, so they're not entirely normal. And there is something that is happening. This guy, or this entity is kind of going after them, going after this house, wrecking havoc everywhere he goes. Death, destruction, chaos, horrifying things are happening, and this guy is just bad news all around. And so you're kind of trying to figure out what is actually going on. What is this thing? What is this thing that's following them? Why is it, so insistent? What's the history of this house? What's the history of these siblings? And this just it's got some like kind of really creepy, spooky, kind of gory parts to it, but there's also a lot of like sadness, and this has like genocide, things like that are happening here. So just some serious topics, very sad. But this was a great book. I really enjoyed, and I'm glad that I got to read this, because I've had this for probably a year or a little over a year already, and I finally got around to reading this, and it was my first book of the month that I read, and it was a strong start. It was a strong start. Okay, next, what do we got here? All right, Coraline by Neil Gaiman. Okay, I'm one of the probably very few people that have not sat and through and watched that animated. I don't know if it's animated, if it's claymation or whatever that is. But it's the movie Coraline, and it's like I remember like the people with the buttons for eyes. So I had never really watched the movie. I kind of thought it was bizarre. So anytime I would see clips of it, I would just turn it off. But I found this book at the library annual book sale. I was like, let me see if I like the book better. And I did. Um, and as I thought, it is creepy. And what can I say about this? Okay, so it's this girl, Coraline, who she and her mother and father move into this house that's kind of like separated into like apartments. So they have other people living in the apartments kind of attached to this house. Um, so they're new there. She likes to explore the property, explore the house a little bit. She's an only child, so she kind of tries to keep herself busy. And she kind of finds access to like a weird part of the house. And actually, it's like almost like a passage into a realm of like another world kind of, and it kind of like is a maybe a mirror like image, very similar to her house and her neighbors and everything, but in her she has like a mom and dad there, but they have black buttons where their eyes are. So they kind of make it look like this is just a wonderful world and this is perfect, and she'll be so happy there. It's really, really bizarre. And so obviously things take turns for the worse and things get kind of creepy. And yeah, yeah. All I can say is I don't know what kind of children's book this is, because this is considered like a children's book, and I think it's just kind of creepy to be a kid's book, but whatever. I actually did enjoy the book and the story. I probably still won't see the movie, but I thought it was good. It was good. I was surprised. And it was a quick read. This was like what? Like maybe 200 pages, 170 pages. So it was a quick read. I did this in like one day. Okay. Next we had The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This was a, let's say, 2 for 1, okay? So it had like the creepy vibes, but it was also on my list of 100 greatest books ever written that I'm trying to read the whole list. So I was able to check this one off. Basically, this is about Dorian Gray, who was a gorgeously handsome man and he was a young man, absolutely gorgeous and handsome. Even men thought, wow, this guy is just gorgeous, right? So he sat to have his portrait painted by this painter, and he was just kind of like, man, like, oh, it says right here what he says. How sad it is. I shall grow old and horrible and dreadful, but this picture will remain always young. And so he kind of wished that he could stay young instead and have his picture, I guess, grow old. And basically that ends up what happens. And it was just weird because as time went on, he didn't age, but his image, his portrait aged. Not only did it age with just, natural time, but it aged in the bad things that he did. So if he like were drinking or doing drugs or worrying or doing things that would bring worry lines, or it would just like change your face and make you look almost like evil or sinister, or those kinds of appearances would show in this painting. So it was just bizarre. And like, so the kind of man he turned into, because of this, it was just nuts. It was nuts. So it's like, it took a turn for the worse. Let's just say that. Okay. It just took a turn for the worse. This dude, Dorian, my dude, he kind of struggled with this pretty badly, and he just got this bad reputation. He was just doing whatever, I guess. I mean, it was, you know, you kind of feel immortal, right? I mean, whew, the stuff he did. This was a good book. Now, I've read or have heard a lot about this. Everyone's talking about how gorgeous this book is. The writing is exquisite. It's blah, 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 blah. I didn't get that. And maybe I was just reading it quickly, or maybe I don't know. But I would definitely read this again, and I would probably take my time a little bit more and see if I'm like capturing what this gorgeous writing is, because I thought it was going to be very like almost poetic and but I thought it was regular, like for a classic. Nothing, whatever. I had, like, let me see what I highlighted here. Yes, horribly unjust of you. I make a great difference between people. I choose my friends for their good looks, my acquaintances for their good characters, and my enemies for their good intellects. A man cannot be too careful in the choice of his enemies. I have not got one who is a fool. They are all men of some intellectual power, and consequently they all appreciate me. Is that very vain of me? I think it is rather vain. I don't know. Let me see what else. There are only two kinds of people who are really fascinating. People who know absolutely everything, and people who know absolutely nothing. Something else. Beautiful sins, like beautiful things, are the privilege of the rich. So I did highlight a couple points in here, and I did enjoy this book. I would totally read this again. I'm checking this off on my 100 greatest books ever written. Making progress. I am more than a quarter of the way through. I think that might have been my 26th or 27th book. So I'm making progress. Okay. Next, I have Verity by Colleen Hoover. This was, I don't want to say recommended, but, a colleague of mine was like, hey, I read this. You got to read this. So this is her book. So I read it this month, and I was kind of like hesitant about it. I think this is one of the ones that I was most creeped out about, I guess, because I thought this was going to be like a Fatal Attraction kind of thing. So basically this woman is hired by, she's a writer, and there's like a famous writer whose name is Verity. She had this accident. She's incapacitated in her home, and her husband is looking for another writer to finish the last, I think, 2 books in this series. And so he hires this woman, and she goes to stay at their house while she's going through the, doing research, going through the books, going through the manuscripts, going through the drafts, anything that she has in her office that will help her put together, the last 2 books in the series. Okay, so this woman, and she's kind of like paralyzed, like almost like a vegetable. And so things start to happen in this house. There was every kind of cringe. Let me tell you what, I was just cringing through the whole thing. One of the things that caused me to cringe was this woman who's staying at their house, the husband and the incapacitated wife, she starts catching feelings for this guy. Totally inappropriate. And then there's, a boy involved. I think he's like 10. Their son is like 10 years old or something like that. And then there's like nurses that come in to help take care of the wife. So the so that just creeped me out, that like, girl, you don't go there. Like, come on. But not only that, she finds a manuscript this autobiography that Verity had written that tells like a side to her I guess nobody knew, and had like just all this awful stuff that she, oh my God, it was so awful, just awful stuff. You're thinking, you're reading this and you're like, what the heck am I reading? This lady is nuts. And it was crazy. And mm, yeah, I read this in like 2 days. It's, for me, it was like a page turner. It was cringy. It was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can read another page. And I'm like flipping through the pages, like, I got to find out what's going on next. So there was kind of like, no, like a train wreck. That's exactly like a train wreck. You don't want to look, but you can't help looking. And it was just, oh God. It was just, in the way it ended, you're like, I don't even know what to think. Like, I had to not read for a day because I was like, how do I feel about this? And if anybody's read this book, you know what I'm talking about. You don't know what to believe. I think when this book is over, you don't know what to think about anybody. I don't know what to think about her, her husband, Verity. The whole thing is a mess. So that's all I can say about that book. I don't know what else. That was weird. It was weird. Okay, the next I read The Silent Patient by Alex. Oh, here we go with this last name again. Alex Michaelides. Michael. Ah, that guy. Anyways, so this book was, again, this was like another page turner, very suspenseful, kind of thriller, kind of, oh, you didn't know what the heck to make of this. You didn't know what was going on. So basically, this book pretty much starts off with this woman who basically is standing there. I think her wrists are slit. She's bleeding. She's standing in this apartment or this house after she and her husband is tied to the chair. And I guess she had like shot him like 4 or 5 times in the face. So his face is pretty much gone. And she's standing there and not saying a word. So basically she goes to trial and it's like guilty, insanity, whatever. And she ends up, because she didn't say a word, she would not speak after this event. And they just said, well, she's insane. There's nothing else that they can do about it, I guess. You know, her fingerprints were all over the weapon. There was just all the evidence. Obviously, she did it. So this not a psychiatrist, I think he was a psychotherapist, wants to help her, right? So he transfers to her facility to help her. He wants her to trust him, to talk, to figure out like what's going on, like what happened that day, what actually happened. And so he ends up going beyond what he's supposed to be doing and reaching out to like neighbors, friends, family, acquaintances. The only evidence that was left behind was, I guess, after the murder, because she was a painter and she painted like this portrait, and I don't know, but through this whole book, I had like 5 or 6 different theories of what was going on. All right. And then everyone was suspect. I'm like, this guy's a suspect. And wait a minute, this guy's creepy as her brother-in-law. He's creepy. I bet he had something to do with this. Or what about this neighbor? Like, it's kind of weird, you know, I bet, this person has something to do with it. Oh, the art gallery guy, like he's definitely invested. Something's going on with this guy. So I had so many theories, so many suspects, and I was way off. This one throws you in for a loop. This book, when it finally comes together, you are like, oh, stunned. This book was fantastic. Like, I would have never thought. I would have never thought. I didn't piece any of this together. It wow. Yes, yes. This book was something. I'd recommend it. I I was like really weird about reading this book, and I was like, oh my gosh, like insane asylums, who knows? But no, this book was fantastic. It was so well done. It was so fun, very suspenseful, very thrilling, very, again, it had that big no, it had that factor. It definitely had that factor. Oh my gosh, I would read this again. I'm gonna like put this down for like 10 years and then come back to it because I can't read it when I already know. I want to like reread it when I forgot all about it, which is what I did with this next book. And this is the omnibus version by Kelly Armstrong. This is Werewolves. I read the first book, which is Bitten. And so that's this part. All right, that's the first book. The next book is Stolen, and then the last one is Beginnings. But I had read Bitten, I'd have to say 10 years ago, very long time. And it was a book that I had borrowed from the Little Free Library on a whim, read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this book is so freaking amazing. And I think I returned it back to the Little Free Library, but it just always rested with me. And I'm like, I really want to read that again. And I didn't even know that it had like other books attached to it. So when I was finally looking into what book that was, and I found out that it was like kind of like a trilogy, I was like, oh my gosh. And there's this omnibus version. Yes, I'm going to get it for $6.99 used. Yes. So, oh, what can I say? This has got to be the best werewolf book I have ever read in my life. Oh my gosh. I loved it so much. I am so excited to like continue and read the other two, but let me tell you a little bit about Bitten. Okay. Bitten is about Elena, and this is why I love so much time passing from when I read this book, because I remembered a lot of pretty main points, but like I remember someone dying in a parking lot, and I was like, okay, so I remember there was like this significant death, but I was like, I don't remember if it was a member of her pack, if it was like a friend, if it was her boyfriend, but I remember there was like a significant death. And I remember they were hunting hunting like a killer or something. So I didn't remember all the details, but I just remember how exciting this book was and how interesting and whatever. So when I read it again this month, it was fantastic. I was like, I didn't remember any of this. So it was like reading it over again. And here's what I liked so much about this book. It focuses a lot about not so much about like a half human, half wolf, man-eating creature that's got no control and is tearing apart the town. It's not like that at all. It's basically big wolves, and it focuses a bit on the wolf nature. So it's about your senses, your sense of smell and the way they interact with each other, like the wolves that are in the pack, and how they play roughly with each other, and how it feels to run in the forest and play and hunt, and just the feeling of the wind in your fur, and the adrenaline. And it just really takes you on this whole like whatever. It's just amazing. It's so well done. So basically, this book is following Elena. She was a member of a pack, and she left the pack. She was like, first of all, she was bitten, and so wasn't born into being a werewolf. So she didn't, didn't have these werewolf genes, but she got bit, and she was like really mad about this. She was like, I did not ask for this, whatever, whatever. And so she was with the pack for a while, but then she was like, I just want a normal life. Screw this, right? So she left the pack, went to start her own life. So she got a fiance. Were they engaged? No, they were going to be engaged. But she got a boyfriend, a very serious relationship. They moved into an apartment together. She got a job as a journalist. So she's is kind of like trying to live a normal life and be happy. But the pack reaches out and says, hey, there's this emergency. We need you back here. And she's like, no, I'm good. And they're like, no, really, get over here, right? So she's like, let me find out what's going on. So she goes over there and stuff is going on. She needs the help. There's yeah, I don't want to give any spoilers, but let me tell you. So she goes back home, and her ex mate, who's part of the pack, is there. And so there's that history that she's trying to work out. And she just wants to finish this nonsense so that she can get back to her boyfriend and her normal life. Okay. So she's just fighting the wolf side of her. Um, but ooh, this book was so thrilling. It was so thrilling. I mean, we have serial killers. We have packs of wolves. We have what they call mutts, which are basically wolves gone wild. These half human, half wolf kind of hybrids that aren't part of a pack, and they have like they're not under like they don't follow rules. They're hard to contain. They kind of have to be kept in check by the pack, and sometimes they're gotten rid of because they're just bad news. So this book was so fun. This is one of the ones that I just could not put down, and I just couldn't wait for my lunch break. I couldn't wait until after work. I couldn't wait. I just wanted one more chapter, one more chapter, one more chapter. Just this book was it was perfect. It was like the perfect way. And I finished this yesterday, October 30th, the day before Halloween, and it was the perfect end to what felt like a pretty perfect reading month. And I'm just so happy that I found this book and I read it again, and I think I will read this yet again. I'll put this down for like another 10 years. So it'll feel like I'm reading it again for the first time. And I think this month, or during the month of November, I'll read the second part, the second book, which I've never read. It's Stolen. So that's where I'm at with that. So that is my reading month for the month of October, all the books that I read. And I'm going to tell you, I'm so glad, so glad that I stepped outside of my comfort zone this month and I went for some kind of creepy kind of thriller, because no regrets here. I had so much fun reading this stuff this month. It was so different, and I kind of want more of it. I don't know. Am I going to step it up? We'll see. We will see. I am putting together my November TBR. Maybe when I get that put together, I will share it with you. But, oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say. Bitten was my 99th book that I read this year. 99th. So I am in the process of trying to find something really special, something that I really I just feel like my 100th book has to be something special. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I'm going to take some time tomorrow to see what I choose. I want it to be a winner. I want it to be fun. Um, we'll, we'll see. Maybe I'll do a video about that. Maybe you guys can help me pick. I don't know. But that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for staying with me this long, and let me know if you have any recommendations for books like this that are like kind of thriller, suspenseful, a little bit creepy. I wouldn't mind reading something that's kind of like paranormal, like haunted, a little bit of haunted, okay? Not like I'm gonna be scared to sleep at night, but I want to start off with like a little bit of haunting and see if I can stand the creepiness. I don't know. I want to get my feet wet a little bit with this genre. So help me out here. So if you have any book recommendations for me, leave them in the comments. And let me know what you read during the month of October. And do you read spooky um, books during the month of October? Is that something that most people do? Do you like try to pick your books with the seasons or with the vibes, romance books around Valentine's Day or Christmas books around the holidays? I don't know. Is it just me or I don't know. We'll see. Let me know what you're up to, what you're reading, and what your recommendations are. Have a good night. Bye.